Hello fam, hello fam, hello. I am back with you to share some tips about being and living sugar free. I am just a 51-year-old woman trying to figure out this whole thing when it comes to health, nutrition, working out, dieting, and all that good stuff. And as I am doing so, I want to share my tips with you because I think it's helpful. That way you don't have to deal with some of the challenges that I've had, and maybe it can get you to your results a lot faster. I do want to let you know that next week I have a special guest, and the following week I have another special guest. So next week I have IFBB Pro, International Fitness Bodybuilder Pro, Fran, and personal trainer who will be joining me to share some tips on why people are challenged when it comes to working out. And then the week after that, I have special guest fitness trainer Alpine joining me to talk about the mindset when it comes to training in the gym. So you don't want to miss those two guests. It is definitely important to talk about fitness goals, working out, and how to stay in that space, because it's nutrition is a part of it, but staying healthy, resistance training, all of that is very important. There's a whole package when it comes to staying fit, and it really is nutrition, workouts, as well as mindset. So you want to have the triple threat so that you can stay in that space of being and remaining healthy. One thing I wanted to say is that I come on with a lot of tips and suggestions, and I don't want to come across as you need to be perfect in doing any of these things. I'm by no means perfect, and I don't want you to think that you have to make major shifts overnight. What I do want to say is big changes result in big results. I don't want to say results in that, but big changes equals big results faster. So if you do a lot of things such as keto, intermittent fasting, or let's say you're not keto, but let's say you're low sugar, or maybe you're a combination of low sugar, high fat, and you do intermittent fasting, you drink all your water, you work out 4 to 5 times you will see results faster. If you just do some of those things or a portion of those things, you're not going to see results as quickly as you may like. But do not get frustrated with what you're doing. Start off slow and you'll see results. But let's hop into the topic of the day. The topic of the day is fat is not your foe. Fat is not the ops. Fat is not the enemy, but it's been demonized for so long. So I'm coming to you, just as a reminder, I'm coming to you live, unedited, unscripted. I do have some notes today though, because there are so much I want to talk about when it relates to fat. There's just so much information. So the first thing I want to tell you about is fat being demonized, or fat being looked at as the bad guy. Why is that? Well, a lot of information research back in the 80s, the early 80s, was focused on making fat the bad guy versus sugar. The information that I'm getting, some of this is from Danielle Hamilton. You can find her on Instagram. She also has a podcast called Unlocking the Sugar Shackles, and she's where I get a lot of my information from. She is really good and has had a medical history that resulted in her really researching sugar and what it can do to our system. But let me get back to the point at hand. Why is it that fat has been demonized? Well, one reason is because there are people, scientists, that were paid to do research and to conduct studies in favor of sugar. They were paid by the big businesses that are highly into promoting sugar and wanted to take the focus off of themselves and put it more on problems with fat. And so one research was done by, his name is Axel, I forgot his name, Axel someone, I'll tell you later, but he was paid to do a study. It was called the 7-country study. And with that study, It was to evaluate countries that had a high-fat diet that resulted in heart disease and other associated diseases. That 7 countries research was excluding some countries that did have high fat but had good results. So for example, Iceland, high fat country, but they didn't have heart disease problems. So Ansel just cherry picked what it is or what countries that he thought would fulfill the study. Why? Because he was paid to by sugar associations to do so. And at that time, I think they said they paid 3 different scientists and what equates to about $50,000 today. So they paid them to get them to point to saturated fat as a bad thing. And that's just one thing we have to think about in general. Anytime we're hearing messaging, we want to see who the source is of the message, and we want to do our own research to really find out if things make sense and if they're true. But there was a lot of push in terms of saying that fat was bad, and to point people more towards, thinking that a low fat, high carb would be better. And so people started doing more high carb sugars and whatnot. We're starting to see this shift now in the 2000s, especially with keto coming out, keto being more, high fat and burning and ketosis and whatnot. But for years, people thought that fat was bad. And that's something that I subconsciously thought was bad. And even when it came to when I was vegan, I focused on eliminating fats. But I didn't really care about sugars. I didn't really care so much about eating pastas and breads and whatnot. I just focused on, kind of taking out fats and animal fat as well. All right, so kind of got that out the way. I don't know if I can share this with you. Sometimes you can share a picture, but I don't think I can. I'm not going to do it here, but I think I can link another picture to the article in New York Times. It is called How the Sugar Industry Shifted the Blame to Fat. So it's an article from New York Times, and I want you to check that out. So when it comes to fat, here's what I want you to think about, some of the benefits of fat. And I am going to focus on reading some of these. Fats are good for you because they provide the building blocks for hormones. As a former vegan, I can testify that, like I said, I probably have some deficiencies in terms of the necessary vitamins because I was taking out a lot of fat from my diet. And then let's see what else. When you eat fat as part of your meal, you feel fuller longer. So my sister-in-law said, when I do shakes or smoothies, I don't feel full, like I'm still hungry. And she has a great point. If you buy a smoothie, first of all, don't buy smoothies at any place like Smoothie King or anything like that. There's way too much sugar in that. But if you're making your smoothie at home, try to minimize the amount of sugar in there and add healthy fats. Because if you don't have healthy fats and if you don't have protein in it, you will be hungry sooner. So add a protein powder, a healthy protein powder. Also, you could add something like coconut oil. You could add something like avocados. Healthy fats, you could add almond butter. Those are the types of things that you want, and that will help you so that you're not so hungry after you consume a protein shake. Let's see. And you also need to have fat because it helps with some vitamins and processing certain vitamins. So you need to process fat soluble vitamins, and vitamins like vitamin A, D, E, and K, they need the fat in order to be absorbed into your system. So you know how sometimes you're buying supplements, you're eating them all the time, and you're like, I don't know if they're working. Still, sometimes we don't know if they're working, but you often need some other things in your body to be working well to make sure they're processed. And in the case of vitamins A, D, E, and K, you need to have fat in your system. Now, here's the key. It has to be healthy fat. It can't just be any any random fat. It has to be healthy fats. So you have your saturated fats, you have your monounsaturated fats, and you have your polyunsaturated fats. The saturated fats are typically the animal fats. And I can't get all science about it. You'll want to check out Danielle Hamilton for this, but it has something to do with the number of bonds in fat. So there are more bonds in saturated fats than it is in polyunsaturated fats. When we're talking about saturated fats, and these are the fats that you want to eat. These are the ones that you want to eat or consume. And I know it's going to blow people's minds because you're still stuck in this, the 80s mentality of fat is bad, fat is bad. You want to eat saturated fats such as lard. Here's some more. There was a couple more saturated fats. Lard, chicken, duck, and goose fats. I don't do chicken, duck, or goose fats, but lard, anything that's like taken from the animal is more natural and not altered, and the bonds are stronger. So when you cook it at a high temperature, it's not going to start to separate and not do the job that the fat is supposed to do. Coconut oil is another saturated fat. You can cook it at, I think, a higher temperature than 400 degrees. That is another healthy unsaturated fat. When we look at monounsaturated fats, two healthy fats. Olive oil, which I think it's undisputed that olive oil is a healthy fat, and avocado oil. I love avocado oil. In fact, I just bought a avocado mayo because I've shared with you guys before, mayo, and I don't care if it's vegan mayo, has a ton of stuff in it, and it has a lot of sugar as well. So this avocado oil, or I should say avocado mayo, only has avocado oil, and eggs in it, if you can eat eggs. So I use that to mix in my tuna fish. So olive oil and avocado oil. A couple of things on oils as well. You can mess up oils by exposing it to light and exposing it to heat. That's why when you buy olive oil, avocado oil, it's typically in a dark bottle, all right? You really don't have to worry so much about the saturated fats. These are the fats, like I said, the coconut oils, the lard and whatnot. They're gonna remain solid for the most part, even if they're just sitting out. So those are okay as well. But heat and light can mess up the oil. And so anytime it says, if it doesn't say cold pressed, then you don't want it, because that means they're using heat to do it. So even with olive oil, if it doesn't say cold pressed, then that probably means they're using some sort of heat to refine it. You want the temperatures of the oils to remain cold, and you want the temperatures, I should say, you want the light to remain at a minimum. You'll see canola oil. These are the oils you don't want to consume. Canola oil, vegetable oil, all the vegetable oils, canola oil, vegetable oils, soybean oil, sunflower oil, any of those oils that are in those big plastic things that are light, you can see right through it. You do not want to consume those. Not only do you not want to consume those, you want to start to check the labels. And here I am again talking about checking labels and the ingredients to find out which of those oils are in the foods you're consuming. If it says canola, safflower, vegetable, soybean oil, you want to put it back on the shelf. So I know that can be a lot, but it sounds like a lot, but it's actually easier said. No, it's not easier said. It actually can be done easily, and I'm sorry. And here's why. Stop using those cheap oils that you have and start to transition into an olive oil, start to transition into an avocado oil, have some coconut oil on hand. And you will just start to see that there are easier ways to kind of consume foods. When you're looking at those labels, you'll start to clue in on these are the oils that I want to be consuming. It's starting to be very easy for me to pick foods in the grocery store. At first I was a little intimidated when I was minimizing sugar from my diet. And then when I started looking into fats, I was a little intimidated. But now it's like easier because it's like, first of all, can I just read the label? Does it make sense? And then here are the things that I don't need. Here are the things that can cause challenges. And oils can significantly harm us. They have radicals and other things that can impact our cell structure. And so if you want to do something drastic and make a major change today, start changing your oils. Swap out your oils for the healthy oils. A couple more things with oils. You want to but there are certain cooking temperatures for certain oils. So for example, if you're going to cook at a very high temperature, or let's say you're going to broil something, that's when you really want to use like your saturated fats, your butters, your lard, that's your go-to. And then you want to, things like olive oil, avocado oil, you don't want to cook those higher than like at 400 degrees, if you're sauteing vegetables. Sesame oil is another good oil, but you might just want to do that for a quick stir fry, and you don't want to do sesame oil too frequently. You just want to minimize the intake on that. So I know that's a lot because there's so much to consider when we're talking about oils. But if you can start to monitor that, you will start to repair your cells in your bodies, and you'll be taking in healthy fats. Stay away from the polyunsaturated fats. Those are the ones that they're just making and pressing out in factories. I like how Danielle says it. If it's not really them just pulling the fruit or the olive, the avocado, the coconut off the tree, pressing it, and then putting it in a bottle, you really don't want to be eating it, with the exception of like animal fat, because that has to be processed. And the last thing I want to mention is there are two other fats. They're a little bit more pricey, but you might want to look into these, and you might have heard of these. The first is ghee, Ghee, and the second is MCT oil. So ghee is like a butter without butter. It's basically butter that they cook at an extremely high temperature to pull out the dairy, if you will. So you can find that next to the shortening. Don't buy shortening. Don't buy Crisco. You want lard, not Crisco. But you can find it next to the shortening, Crisco and lard and all that. It's in a jar, Ghee, and I would get the one that says Himalayan salt. Let's see. And then MCT oil, it is like triglycerides coconut oil. And you can pour that in your coffee. So for example, you can actually put ghee or MCT oil in your coffee. Ghee tends to have a slower digestion of fat, if you will. So it may stay with you longer. And so if you put that in your coffee, and again, you don't want to put in half and half. You don't want to put in these Nestle's creamers. You don't want to put in these creamers, off-the-shelf creamers. They are damaging to you. Read the label. There's all kind of stuff in there. Half and half, just by itself, may be okay, as long as it's not like added sugar in the half and half. As long as it's not, then you might be okay. But the healthier version would be ghee. About a tablespoon of ghee into your coffee, and some sort of sweetener. I know some of you don't like to do stevia, but that's my go-to, a couple of drops of stevia. And then for me, because I'm on a higher protein diet, I add about 2 scoops of, it's called Vital Proteins collagen protein. It just dissolves in my coffee. You can't even taste it. So ghee is an alternative. And then another alternative is MCT oil. And you can cook with ghee too at a very high temperature. So it's like an alternative to butter, and it's very healthy. But like I said, it's very expensive. And then MCT oil is another thing that you can add to your coffee. Again, you put it in with, no sugar, just like stevia. And the MCT oil gets you kind of a boost faster. It's more high processing compared to ghee, which is kind of a slow processing. So you want to do ghee or MCT oil if you can afford it. You can find that at stores like Whole Foods. What else? Ghee you can find at Kroger. You can find at your regular grocery store. MCT oils in the supplement stores, like supplement side, like Sprouts, Whole Foods is where you can find a bottle of MCT oil. But excellent fat alternatives. And then the last thing I was going to say that Danielle Hamilton really suggests is that anytime you are buying anything that is animal based, please try to buy the most expensive you can afford or the highest quality you can afford. Because when you're consuming animal foods, you don't want to be eating the cow and the chickens they're just feeding sugar and Skittles and all that every day. You want the ones that are grass-fed and whatnot. So she says when you're at the grocery store and you're eating animal-based products, make sure it's either organic, grass-fed, or pasture-raised. You want the highest quality and the best nutrients is what you'll get if you grab foods that are in this category. All right, so there you have it. Summarization on fats, healthy fats. Again, you want to focus on the saturated fats if you're like if you eat animal-based products, or if you're cool with eating those types of fats. You could also do avocado. You can do olive oil. You could do coconut oil, a little bit of sesame oil, but stay away from vegetable oils, soybean oils, safflower oils, canola oils, and stay away from it if it's in your ingredients. Look for the healthy substitutes instead. And then the other thing, one last thing. With whatever you're eating, try to add a healthy fat. Now, people are going to be like, oh my goodness, but if I eat this fat, is it going to mess me up? You're going to be messed up if you're eating trashy fats. If you're eating chips, if you're eating cookies, if you're eating pretzels, that's what's messing you up. But if you add healthy fat, like some butter to your broccoli, avocado sliced onto your salad, avocado toast. What else do I do? I put coconut oil in my shakes. Where else do I use oils? Olive oil when I make my eggs. I may make my eggs with some butter. So think about healthy fats and how you can add that, because that is what's going to satiate you, and that's what's going to help you feel fuller longer. And that's what you want, because you don't want to keep consuming food, snacking all day long, because that again spikes your blood sugar. And we want to try to keep our bodies at an even keel, because that's when they operate the best. So there you have it. Again, don't forget to join me next week for my special guest. And I look forward to hearing from you. If this material is good for you, you found it beneficial, please just throw a thumbs up, a like button, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. I'd really appreciate it. And if you have any questions or want me to address a particular topic, then just holler at me. Thank you guys.